Howdy guys, welcome to the second night of Big Brother All-Stars. Cliff Notes outside the house. It's I don't know, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning here in Houston. The house guest went to bed, I don't know, about 3:30 or so, West Coast time, so about 30 minutes ago. I can't stop watching. As long as Nicole is in that house, I'm not gonna be able to stop watching. So I just figured before calling it a night, I'm gonna give y'all what I saw over the past, 6 hours or so worth of live feeds. Give you a little update. I got my Big Brother blanket. I got my Big Brother cup. And in honor of my bestie, I've got some breakfast teas that I'm gonna start drinking because it is evening instead of mornings when I used to do my Cliff Notes in the house. So without further ado, let me get in and tell y'all what's going on. I'm just reading through my notes, so there's no rhyme or reason to it. So just follow along as best you can, and we'll make it quick. But I want to give y'all an update. First of all, earlier today, Danny was talking to Cody and said that Nicole Anthony is the only person in the house that she's not really jiving with, that she thinks Nicole is upset with her because she ghosted Nicole, wouldn't go on her podcast, didn't answer her inquiries into everything. She's trying to throw Nicole under the bus still a little bit. So, you know, that's what Danny was doing, having her story with Cody. There's an alliance going on. Cody, Nicole are like this. And then it looks like they've got Danny in there and a few others we're going to talk about. So there you go. Cody talked about who he's going to put up. He mentioned Ian. Ian's one of the ones I'm cheering for, so don't be saying that, Cody. He said that Ian is the only person who hasn't talked to him so far, that he's wanting some reason to put people up. Starting to feel towards the end of it, it's not just anyone. He's got some targets, but Ian's the only one who hadn't talked to him, but he just isn't so worried about Ian right now, doesn't want to waste his HOH trying to get Ian out of the house, so I think Ian is safe so far. They announced the twist, the first twist, the safety suite. Turns out it's a competition. Everyone gets, it sounds like a pass that sounds like you can use one time over the next 3 weeks. You choose which week you want to use it. If you use that pass, you get to compete in this safety competition. If you win, then you are safe and you get to drag along one person who is safe with you. Now, if you're the +1 that's drug along, you get safety, but there's also a punishment that you don't know about at the time. You don't have to play every week and you only get to try it once. But that's how the game works. So they announced that the safety competition was going to take place. As it turns out, feeds went down, but you could see when they got back. Turns out that Kaiser and Janelle were the only ones to play in a safety competition. And there's a lot of talk later in the evening, especially Kaiser was talking about saying, anyone else, if they thought that they were a potential target, why wouldn't they have played right now? The fact they didn't tells them a little bit about who feels like they're tight with Cody and who isn't. But at the end, Kaiser and Janelle were the only ones that competed. Kaiser won, pulled Janelle in as his +1, so they are both safe, which works to their advantage because it was looking pretty clear that Cody was planning to go after the old school players and put Kaiser and Janelle on the block. So they did what they had to do to survive this first week of evictions. The drawback, and there's one drawback, they can't compete for the next 2 weeks, so they're a little bit more vulnerable. The other one is Janelle has a punishment as a result. Turns out it's a suit that she has to wear for the next week. Turns out it's an all-star suit. It's a giant yellow star with lights that you turn on and off with batteries that she has to wear that around. There's a hat on it, a little bit like Tommy's last year, except it's the top of a star, a big gold sequin-looking thing. So she has to wear that around for the next week, which was pretty funny. But that's her punishment. But they are safe in that first safety. It was a timed competition that you had to do something, and we don't know what it was, but some kind of timed competition. Other things that are going on, Tyler is... He said in his intro he wasn't going to play like last time where he promised final twos to everyone and got caught up in it. He's doing the same thing again. Tyler has promised final twos to who all? He's final two to a bunch of people. Christmas, Bailey, Kevin, Cody. I think a couple of the cameramen that are behind the walls have got final 2 deals with Tyler as well. He's telling everyone that they're his ride or die, and a lot of them are believing it. So Tyler's up to the same thing he did last season. A lot of people. I think he's playing a pretty great game as long as he doesn't get caught. And that's a big if, because there are some champion people playing this game, and there's some people that suspect what's going on. But that's what's happening with Tyler. Nicole Franzel and Cody are tight. They are proving more and more that they're working together. You know, no matter what people say about duos from past seasons having squabbles, not working together, I don't believe it. In the end, they're always going to work together, and that's the case here. Nicole talked about creating basically a fake women's alliance so she can get a lot of info from all the women. Cody's talking about doing the same thing, getting info from the men, but they're protecting each other, and they're going to share that information. So those two are very tight. And people are noticing, a few people are noticing that. Everyone's talking about liking David. I knew David had a good social game, and it's working. Everyone likes him. He is sleeping in the photo room along with Tyler and Enzo. Who else? I can't remember who else is in there, but he's in with them. And at one point, David went out to brush his teeth, go to the bathroom or something. Enzo and Tyler immediately started talking about how much they like David, and I think they're going to try to bring him in. Someone talked about a dude alliance, and I think that's David's hoping to get in with something like that, and kind of work with Tyler and Cody and Enzo and those guys. So we're starting to see some of that form up. But Janelle is worried that David's athletic and he'll work with the other muscle in the house, which, you know, the dude alliance. Nicole, on the other hand, is connecting with a lot of the old schoolers. Kevin, Janelle, Kaiser. So she's even though she's new school, she's talking to these old schoolers quite a bit. Now later on in the evening, Nicole and David had a nice conversation, kind of just supporting each other and just calming each other down and everything. So I'm hoping even if Nicole ends up working a little bit with the old schoolers more than the new schoolers, and David's in with the muscle and more the New Alliance people, I really hope that they are also watching out for each other and helping each other progress further along. And it does look like it's starting to turn into a potential old school versus new school competition right now. So we'll see. We'll see. What else is going on? I mentioned it. Janelle, Kaiser, Ian, Nicole in an alliance. There's some people, Bailey, Davon, that they aren't really sure where they fall right now. Ian's another one that I know Nicole and Kaiser and Janelle talked about bringing in, but they're kind of playing it slow on that. They're going to see what happens. But again, we're definitely starting to see some alliances form up. They're starting to play the game fast. You know, first night, not a whole lot going on, not as much. Tonight, a lot of stuff going on. Kaiser is leading the charge. Man, that guy, in fact, there's already been some people, I think Tyler's talked about saying, oh, Kaiser's talking to everybody. He's talking too much. So he needs to be careful because he is definitely the figurehead of the old school people right now, and people are noticing it. But I also think Kaiser's a great player. I think he's got a very good feel for who's doing what and what's going on. He's leading the charge. He's talking about bringing in Memphis and Keisha also, old school group as well. Maybe Danny. Danny seems to be with Tyler and Cody and Nicole Franzel, although there's a part of me that thinks that she thinks she's in tighter with those people than maybe they think Danny's in. So Danny's somewhere in the middle. She's going to be needing to be careful. But yeah, Kaiser's talking about that. Kevin seems to be a bit of a free agent. And Nicole, it's very end of the evening, right before everyone went to bed, Nicole and Kevin talked a little bit. And both recognize that this is this old school versus new school potentially forming. And both of them saying, we're somewhere in the middle. And even if they do start taking shots at each other, hopefully they go after bigger targets first. And us that are a little bit more in the middle may be able to survive these early shots and last a little bit longer until we can do something. So they recognize that they're not necessarily primary targets, and just hoping that whoever's in power goes after the other side and those primary targets instead. Let's see, Kevin free agent. Nicole, Day, and Kevin aligning. They were talking a lot together in the lounge outside the HOH room up on the second floor. They just seem to have a good chemistry with each other. And so keep my fingers crossed. I think that would be very interesting. Davon, she's playing a good game. Davon sat up upstairs for 6 hours tonight. And some of y'all may have seen it earlier in the feed. Sat up there for 6 hours working on a little wooden puzzle. And the whole time talking to Nicole, Kevin, whoever else was up there. and she's doing a whole lot of listening and not nearly as much talking. So she's taking a lay of the land before she figures out where she wants to go with this. And as I said before, she and Bailey both seem like neither one has made a lot of commitments one way or the other. So we'll see what happens. But Da'Vonne, she's paying attention. She knows what's going on, or I think she's figuring out what's going on. Let's see. I mentioned Tyler offering a lot of final twos. All right, and this isn't as much strategy, but I was laughing. It's a different season. Everyone's in there a little bit older, a little bit more mature. Cody was talking about the difficulty of being in that Big Brother house while you're in a relationship. Welcome to my world, Cody. Yeah, I know what it's like to have family or loved ones outside the house and you're stuck in there. I empathize. I truly do. So, yeah, welcome to my world. Nicole Franzel was crying quite a lot. She was having a bit of a breakdown. At one point, I couldn't tell whether they were real tears or a little bit of sympathy, trying to deflect that. Maybe she's crying a little bit just so people don't realize that she's tight with Cody, and crying because maybe she's worried about getting put up, which she's not. But the more I watched, it may just be that she's kind of gotten overwhelmed. She's missing Nick. Nick. I'm thinking back to my season. She's missing Victor. And just kind of got overwhelmed. I think today she realized the game is starting up, and the stresses and the pressures are starting up as well. So there were a lot of tears from Nicole in the bathroom, in the bedrooms that people were aware of. Janelle, I mentioned, is going to have to wear a punishment costume. Tomorrow should be the nominations. Because it's a nomination day, instead of waking up at 10 o'clock West Coast, they should be waking up at 9 o'clock. Don't know what time the nominations are. But around 9 o'clock West Coast time, people should be waking up. So those of you who want to watch the live feeds early, there's your starting point, I imagine. Let's see. Day one approach. Oh, a little misspelling there. Yeah, it's interesting. Day approached Janelle in the storage room and said that she wants to work together. I forgot about that. Yeah, so Da'Vonne's starting to make some moves and everything, and I was happy to see her approach Janelle, and that would be quite the duo. Again, things are starting to come together. This is where it gets exciting. This is why I'm so happy to see the feeds on day number 1 or day number 2, instead of waiting a week when all this has already happened, and then the feeds come on and you got to try to figure out how it all came about. We're seeing it happen in real time, which is fantastic. Enzo and Tyler talk about how much they like David and how much they like Cody, as I mentioned before. Cody's pretty smart too. Cody talked about that he knows Enzo's going to want to form a male alliance, but Cody didn't want to be the one to bring it up. He's waiting for Enzo to suggest it, so then Cody and then Tyler can jump on board and say, "Oh, great idea, Enzo," and let him think he's leading the way. And I think it's working. Enzo, just the way he talks, it truly does seem like Enzo's wanting that muscle group, the guys, to form something, and so they're just feeding Enzo along and letting him come in and think it's all his idea when actually that's exactly what they want him to do. Kevin has been watching a lot about what's going on. Kevin is very observant. I'm really liking Kevin as well. At one point, Kaiser and Janelle were in the key room. It used to be the archery room my season. In the key room, talking and everything. And I noticed when they came out that Kevin was laying on the couch in the living room, and he popped up as soon as that door opened. But he was laying there waiting to see how long they were in there and what all, if anyone else went in there. I know he wasn't just resting. He was seeing what was going on there. Later, late in the evening, as Cody was going to bed, Tyler was coming out. In fact, I think they'd already turned off the lights. Tyler comes out, and sure enough, Kevin's walking right down that hallway towards the have-not room, and he saw Tyler come out, and sure enough, during a conversation with Nicole later, he mentioned that he saw Tyler come by, and he's just almost 100% certain that Tyler and Cody are working together. So here's the thing, and Nicole, and I'll talk about it more in a second. Gosh, and I don't want to talk forever, guys, but Nicole had already heard from Kaiser and Janelle that Tyler and Cody were tight, and kind of that they're looking at this new school alliance. And then she got confirmation from Kevin, and they all are starting to confirm what they're all seeing together, and seeing that it looks like that's probably what's happening. But yeah, Kevin is definitely paying attention to everything that's going on. Keisha has become aware that Kaiser and Janelle and herself are targets. And because Kaiser and Janelle have safety, Keisha is probably going up and very well could be the target. The other target I kept hearing all night long as suspected, and this primarily from Janelle, Kaiser, Nicole, Kevin, would be Memphis as the other one. So just because they're considered a tight duo, the two of them, and it's kind of a shot across the bow for Cody to be doing that. But sounds like those two may be the ones going up tomorrow. We shall see. Let's see what else is going on. Janelle and Nicole were talking. They're recognizing that Tyler, Cody, and David, this is in the lounge room, used to be the boat room, recognizing that Tyler, Cody, and David, and probably Enzo are all working together. And Nicole and Janelle, Nicole Anthony, were absolutely certain that Nicole Franzel is part of that alliance. They know what's going on, or they recognize that. All right, now, for those of you, I hope there's some few of y'all still out there. Here's something that was very interesting. I was very interested to hear this. Janelle told Nicole Anthony that Dan had told her before she went into sequester that Nicole Franzel was the one responsible for Derek not being in the house. They heard that rumor that was going around that we've all seen, online. It's gotten into the house that somehow, and they don't know how, but somehow Nicole Franzel kept Derek from coming into the game. And so if that's in there, does that create a possible wedge between this Cody Franzel final two ride or die type situation? Because obviously Cody and Derek are like that, and if Cody thinks that Nicole had something to do with Derek not being in that house, yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to affect that relationship there. But the rumor's out there. Janelle heard it from Dan, so read into that what you will, but it's out there. Nicole did an impression of Christy and then a later impression of Tommy for Janelle. Spent some time talking about our season last season, so that was very interesting. Kaiser then came in. He's aware of everything that's going on, it seems like, as I told y'all. He did notice, apparently you only had a certain amount of time to swipe this VIP pass if you wanted to compete. And he noticed that both David and Tyler were watching the clock just to see who was going to potentially play. And so he thought it was a little suspicious, and it really made him more secure thinking that Tyler and David are tight and working with Cody. The fact that they were trying to keep so much attention on who may or may not be signing up to play the game. He suspects Enzo of being with them also. Janelle also says that Janelle says that Tyler told her that Casey was going to be on the show, that it was a confirmed deal that Casey was going on, and then for whatever reason, and I don't want to get into speculation, but for whatever reason, Casey ended up not on the show. But apparently she told Tyler she was going to be there, and then obviously it didn't happen. All right, I'm very proud of my friend Nicole. She sat in there after everyone left. She did her little Nicole notes. She spoke in a softer voice than I did, but she weighed everything out. I think Nicole, she seemed a little nervous yesterday, but she's starting to figure out this house and figuring out where her place in the house is. And as she learns more and feels more comfortable, she's getting more secure with what's going on. She is, as much as she feels comfortable with Janelle and Kaiser and would like to work with them, she also is a little bit suspicious that they may be working Nicole and trying to throw David under the bus with the assumption that Nicole and David may be tight and watching out for each other. So she's aware that there's ulterior motives, but she also mentioned that even if what they say is true and they are going after Keisha and Memphis, maybe that's not such a bad deal for Nicole. It gets a strong duo out of the game, and she voiced at that point that, fine, let Tyler and Cody and that side go after Kaiser and Janelle and Memphis and Keisha. Let that side go after Tyler and Cody and all of them, and maybe Nicole can survive for a while until other things happen. I like that strategy, Nicole. I do indeed. And then finally, Nicole and Kevin had a quick talk in the bathroom. Again, it's just to confirm some of what they've already heard, and we'll see. Nominations tomorrow, but again, it looks very much like old school, new school. The battle lines are starting to be drawn. My question at this point, are the most powerful people on each side going to be taking out the head targets, the big targets, or are they going to do some kind of truce similar to what All-Stars Season 7 was like and start picking off the people who aren't as closely aligned, which I don't want. Go for the big targets. That works for me. But anyway, all right, so there you go, guys. We're 20 minutes in, and that's a long time for Instagram, but I wanted to give y'all an update. I hope y'all, I love it. Man, last year I had hair turning gray from stress being in a house. This year I've just got big old dark circles under my eyes because I'm not getting any sleep at all. But as long as Nicole's in that house, I'm not sleeping. Cheers, guys. Y'all have a great day. Be safe, and we'll see y'all again later. SKD143. Love y'all, guys. Bye.